Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I'm Jennifer Helm, the Faithful Stamper, and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up! Today I have for you a different kind of video. I don't have a card, I don't have a scrapbook page, but I have a fantastic idea that I think will help you with some craft room organization, and I just had to share it with you. So this video we're going to do tonight is for ribbon savers. If you're anything like me, you probably have a stack of spools of ribbon or maybe a bin, a drawer. I have a three-tiered cart that I like to keep my ribbon in, but it's messy. I end up with tons of spools, lots of ribbon hanging out, and it really puts me off using it because it's such a mess. It just kind of gets in my head, and then I don't like to use it on my projects, and that's just shameful because we have some beautiful ribbon. So a demonstrator by the name of Brenda Quintana came up with the idea for ribbon savers, and she shared it, and it's so simple and so fantastic. So full credit to Brenda for everything in this video, but it's so simple you'll even think, why didn't I think of this myself? Because that's exactly what I thought. So a ribbon saver is very simply a piece of cardstock that is folded and punched to create a perfect ribbon saver. It's a little way that if your ribbon, say, gets unrolled, you can very simply wind it back up, and then you can keep a small length of it available so you can look at it, see if the ribbon is going to work for your project, but that it keeps it nice and tidy. So let's go ahead. There's 3 different sizes. I have here an example of what I'm going to keep in my craft area so that I can have easy access to know which size of ribbon saver I need for my spools of ribbon. So I made them in different colors. These are kind of my templates. So I'm going to walk you through how to make the different sizes, and I will share the measurements for them in case you'd like to jot them down or take any screenshots, and then I will post a picture of all the measurements on my Facebook page, which is The Faithful Stamper. So be sure to check that out. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with a 1/2 inch spool. And what I did, and the reason I want to have a template, is so that I can just grab one of these and look. You can measure, but I found sometimes measurements can be a little off. So we're looking at the width of the ribbon spool. So this is for a 1/2 inch spool. And then it's simply some score lines. But what I can do is I can put this through and say, yep, that's exactly the size that I need. And then I can make a stack. I've actually been working at tidying up all my ribbons. So we're going to start with the 1/2 inch spool of ribbon. Now, if you're making just one, if you've only got one lonely spool that needs to be tamed, you can do a 1/2 inch strip of cardstock. But what I'm going to show you is to make multiples of them. So for the 1/2 inch spool, we're going to start with a piece of cardstock, and you can use any color, any thickness. Remember, this is just cardstock, and so we're not investing a whole lot of time in it, so I just used some basic white. And this is 5 1/8 of an inch across the top, and it's probably maybe, I think, 8.5 the other direction. That really doesn't matter, but as I said, I'm going to show you how to make multiples of these. So the strip we're looking for is 5 1/8 by 1/2 inch. But I don't know about you, but it's so fussy to just try to score a little 1/2 inch strip of paper. So I'm going to go ahead and score the whole sheet of paper and then cut it into the size strips that I need. So for example, my 5 1/8 is across the top. We're going to score it 4 times. The first one is at 1 3/8. Then 1 7/8, 3 1/4, and 3 3/4. Now, obviously, I need to cut it down into a 1/2, but what I'm going to do is just take a pencil, and I'm going to write 1/2 inch at the top here. At first I started labeling them left and right, and then I realized that the scores are even across the paper and it doesn't matter which side is left and which is right. So 1/2 inch will do me just fine. Now what I'm going to do is rotate it, and on the side opposite from my note, I'm just going to cut a 1/2 inch strip. Now I can set this aside for any more spools of 1/2 inch ribbon that I need to give a ribbon saver to. And here is the one that I'm going to use to tame this unruly spool of ribbon. So there's 4 score lines. I'm actually going to draw a little pencil line on these just for your sake so you can see them a little better. You do not need to do this on yours at home. So there's 2 sets here. And as I said, it doesn't matter which direction because it is evenly scored across the page. Now what we need to do is punch a small hole in the far small section, so the section on the right, or really just one of them, but we're going to use our hole punch assortment. And so I want to share with you, this is item number 165409, and it's $21 for this set of 3 punches. They are going to come in extremely handy for this project, but can be used for other projects as well. So we have a circular 1/8 of an inch punch, very tiny. Then we have a slot punch, and one that's more of a tab here. I'm not going to use this one. Tonight I'm just going to use these 2. So what we're going to do is, as I said, punch in one of the small sections. Now, a little thing that I found handy, it's a little bit tricky when you're dealing with a small piece of paper to try to get this lined up just perfect. I was kind of trying to line it up one way and then eyeball it the other, and then I had the genius idea to do this. Take a pencil, draw a little circle right in the middle. Now, because I've got my punch here and I'm holding it so I can see the punch, I can just slide this in till I can see that little pencil mark in there and punch. And look at that, that hole is exactly where I want it to be. Genius, right? So now we're going to take our spool of ribbon. I'm going to wind it up a bit just so there's not so much ribbon dangling all over the place. And I'm going to go ahead and fold on my score lines. Now this does not have to be technical because it's not for a card. And what we're going to do is, keeping your punch on the right side, feed the left side through your spool. And that first small score section is going to nestle inside the center of the spool. And then you'll see we're going to wrap around here and put some adhesive here. Now, if you're a fan of green glue, you can put green glue here in a moment. Don't do it yet. And then you'll be folding it shut. Here is where you want to take a moment and feed your ribbon through, because otherwise it's really tricky to try to get the end of your ribbon through here once it's adhered. This was a mistake I made several times, which is why I'm reminding you. So you can go ahead and position it in the spool, take your ribbon, and I always do it from the left going towards the right, and just feed it through the hole. Doesn't really matter how much you pull out. Now, if you're a fan of green glue, as I said, go ahead, put your green glue on here. I am not a fan of green glue. I make mess with it every which way possible. So I discovered I can take some tear and tape. Ours is 1/4 inch wide. And we don't have to get super technical again because this isn't a project. We're not really worried about it falling apart. And I just lost the end of my tape. There we go. So I'm simply going to put a piece of tear and tape here on this section. I can brace it on the spool itself, which is great. I can put my block on the edge of my paper and pull back to give me that nice edge. Although I technically don't need a nice edge. I give it a little press. My ribbon is fed through. And now I just line it up so it's straight and fold them together. And if you happen to get one that's a little bit crooked, it's okay. Nobody's going to know but you. So now that's pressed together. I can pull my ribbon taut so it's all nestled on the spool nicely. But obviously you're thinking, Jen, you got a foot of ribbon there. Easy peasy. Just start winding the ribbon saver. And you can see now I'm left with just a couple of inches. Now, I would say about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, no more than 3, depends on your personal preference how much you want overhanging. But this is so much nicer than having a spool of unwieldy ribbon laying around. You don't want to go much shorter than this because you might actually pull it back through the ribbon saver, and then trying to feed this is a little tricky. Although you can try with a stylus tool to kind of push the ribbon up and get a finger on it. That's what I did in the ones I glued before I fed them through. But check that out. Isn't this neater than those unruly spools of ribbon? So the concept is the same for the other size spools. I'm going to show you 2 different sizes. So the next one up we're going to do is 5/8 of an inch. Again, very much the same basic idea. So for the 5/8 of an inch spools of ribbon, we are going to take a piece of cardstock that is 5 1/4 across the top. And again, just scoring. They all start with 1 3/8 of an inch. And then the next one is 2 inches for this one. 3 1/4. And then 3 7/8. And I'm going to go ahead and cut my 1/2 inch strip. And I'll set that here. And then this is my 5/8 of an inch. That way, easy access for later. Now, the only difference here is the size of the slot. Typically, the 1/2 inch spools are a smaller ribbon, which fit through that 1/8 of an inch circle punch. The wider your ribbon spool, the wider slot you need. And as I said, you're measuring through here. So we're going to use our slot punch. And again, this is where your little pencil trick comes in handy. Trying to eyeball this and get it centered between the score lines is a little tricky until just put a pencil mark. I thought I was the smartest person in the world when I figured this out yesterday. Look at that. It might be a little off center, but it doesn't matter because it's just keeping my ribbon together, right? So again, same setup. Take your spool of ribbon. I wind it up a bit. The edge without the slot goes through the spool and nestled inside. Tear and tape on that top flap. I won't bore you with the block trick again. Oop, see, I almost did it. Now, feed your ribbon through from basically what's the inside of the ribbon saver and pull through. Again, it's helpful if you do this before you put the glue on. See, that's where I would have made a huge mess with the green glue. And then make sure you pull your paper up and line it up. And there we go. Beautiful. I love it. Whoopsie, I almost lost that. So I think I'm going to put my ribbon saver back a little bit. You can also, if you have a narrow strip of cardstock, if your ribbon doesn't want to go through the slot, you can help guide the ribbon through from underneath with a narrow strip of cardstock. Okay, so one more size to show you, and these are the spools that are 3/4 of an inch. So our paper this time is 5 5/8 of an inch. Again, I mentioned we're going to start always with 1 3/8. This time 2 1/8, 3 1/2, and 4 1/4. Again, cut a 1/2 inch strip. And if I know I have a lot of spools this size that need ribbons, I'm just going to go ahead and cut a whole bunch of strips at one time. Again, here, 3/4 of an inch. That way I'm all prepped and ready for more spools. And again, you can see the same concept here with the ribbon and an even bigger slot. So this ribbon I have to show you is new ribbon. I didn't bring my scissors over. It feels very odd to not have 2 tons of supplies out for this, but this is a brand new ribbon that I know I will be using. So if I can actually open it here, sometimes the worst part is trying to get the wrapper off. This is some of our new Shaded Spruce and Soft Seafoam ribbon. It goes with our Turtle Suite that's coming in our new catalog. You can check all that out at thefaithfulstamper.stampinup.net. Gorgeous ribbon. So let's go ahead and give this a ribbon saver. So again, be sure to check out my Facebook page for a full list of the ribbon saver measurements. I'm again going to take my pencil here, and I want this to be a little bit wider because this ribbon is wider. So what I'm going to do is take my slot punch and start on one end of my mark, but I want it to be a little wider, so I'm just going to kind of move my punch a little end to end and increase the size of that slot. Easy peasy. Gonna fold on those score lines. I'm going to remember to feed my ribbon through before I put adhesive on the ribbon saver. Feed it through like so. Now put that tear and tape on or your glue. And I found once I had cut and punched a dozen or more of these, I could roll right through, and I had spools of ribbon finished in no time. I'm so impressed by Brenda and her creativity to take something so simple as a strip of cardstock and create something that is such a benefit to my craft room. I will definitely be using more ribbon now that I don't have a bulky ribbon mess and spools that go flying every time I'm looking for a certain color of ribbon. So I hope you find that helpful. And as I said, I like to keep templates out so I can just at a glance find out what size I need if I don't feel like getting my ruler out. It's easy peasy to put one of these through and say, yep, that's the size I need. I'll give you a sneak peek here. If you want to take a screenshot, there will be a closer up view of this on my Facebook page, but I'm going to keep this in a notebook with all the measurements in case I lose my templates. I can make more. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed just a quick, simple video for such a simple thing that could be such a benefit to you in your craft room. We'll be back with more crafting projects later on. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care and happy crafting.